What's up, guys? This is Brent with Western Equipment. So let's jump right on in and start talking about what the model number means on this John Deere 4044R. So the system for the model number here on the 4044R, 4 is going to be our family size, or just the overall size of the tractor, the frame size. So in these John Deere tractors, we have 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s. So this is just telling us where we're at in that family. This is going to have horsepower ranges from the 42.5, which is actually what our horsepower is going to be. Now, this is normally our horsepower indicator here, but it has it at the 44 because how it is rated here on the 4 Series is more at what the power surge is on the engine, not the consistent horsepower. So the consistent horsepower is going to be 42.5, whereas you're going to have a power surge of 44 whenever you're at 2100 RPMs. Now, the R here is going to be our trim level. This is going to indicate the types of features and functions this machine has. So just like other models of tractors within this 4 Series, we'd have E, M, and R is going to be our most loaded out model. Now, being that this is an R Series tractor, meaning it's going to have the most features, let's talk about some of the ones that we're going to be able to see from the outside of the tractor here. First one being the hood guard right here at the front. So you are going to have this standard hood guard or brush guard here at the front. Now, also what you're going to be able to do is get from the factory the 440R loader. Now, what is specific about the 440R loader as opposed to the loader that you would get on the M and E Series tractors is that this is a quick removable, quick parking loader. So I have another video showing how this loader is taken off that I'll put down in the description below so that you can check that out. But that is going to be an R feature. You're also going to have premium lighting options. So you're going to see that you have an extra set of work lights here at the top on this cab model. Now, this machine also will come in a standard open operator station model where the side lights would be your premium option there. And then also, of course, you are going to have your headlights here at the front too. Now, a couple more of those standard R features are going to come based on the transmission that you pick. So that is if we get the E-Hydro transmission in this tractor, which you will have 2 options. You can get the E-Hydro, which is going to run off of that 2-pedal system, or you can get a standard power reverser transmission that has the lever on the side of the steering column to flip back and forth between forward and reverse. But if we move into that E-Hydro, one of the things that you are going to get on this tractor is you're going to get Hitch Assist, which is going to be the buttons here on the rear left fender that allow you to move your tractor being out of the operator station to help with hooking up those rear implements. You're also going to get the auxiliary 3-point control here at the rear. That way you can also adjust the depth. You can lower or raise those 3-point arms from the rear of the tractor without being in the seat, all making that a premium feature to hooking up implements to this tractor on that 4R Series. So the Hitch Assist feature is one that is absolutely awesome. I could go on and on for days about it, but luckily enough for you, I have done a video on this feature already, so I'll make sure to put a link to it down in the description below. Now, next thing, let's talk about the engine. So I already broke down to you that this is a 42.5 horsepower engine. This is going to be a diesel engine, and it is a Yanmar branded engine. Now, whenever we are in the 4 Series and below on these machines, they are not John Deere engines. They will be Yanmar engines. This is the same engine that John Deere has been using for years on their compact utility tractors. They have great reliability, and that is the reason why Deere has continued to use them for as long as they have. Now, to get into the engine bay here, this is going to be a top open hood, and so we're going to have a little push button over here on the right hand side where we're going to just have to stick in a key. Once we stick in that key, that is going to pop open this hood, and then it's going to raise up, and it has a nice locking bar here on the side. Now, the side panels of this engine cover are removable. Right here, we'll see these little tabs. You can just simply twist those. That will allow you to pull those loose so that we can get to any of the things that we need to do maintenance-wise on this tractor. Now, everything is fairly visible, fairly easy to get to. What we're going to have right here in the front is going to be our cooling system, or our radiator and our condensers for our air conditioning system. So we want to make sure that we are keeping this area clean. Then right here on top, we are going to have our air filter. So very easy to get to on this tractor. One thing that you will keep in mind is that this tractor does not use DEF, so you are not going to have all those extra components that are going to relate to the exhaust system. But what you are going to have is a DPF filter. So that's going to be this big part right here. That is your diesel particulate filter. That's what's going to go through and filter out any of those harmful particles out of the exhaust to make sure to keep them from going into the air when running this tractor. So therefore, with this tractor, you will have those times where that DPF filter is going to need to clean itself. But that is another thing that we'll talk about once we get into the cab. Now, also over here on the right-hand side, if we go down here right below, this is where most of our filter action is going to be taking place. So right here behind our hydraulic hoses, we're going to have our oil filter. We're also going to have our dipstick for our oil right here. Then right in front of that, we're going to have our fuel filter that has our drain here at the bottom for the water separator, and also have our on-off switch. Now, you also have a second fuel filter that's going to be tucked right up back and behind right here by your loader frame. Now, you're also going to have your battery box over here on the right hand side. So right here below the right hand door, you will have these two wing nuts here. You can simply just back these off, take this cover off, and then your battery is safely secured right here. Now, as I was saying, you do have a right hand door on this machine. This is not going to be an entry option. This is more or less just a door for access if you happen to have somebody that needs to give you something, or you need to quickly escape the machine. That could be an escape point, but that is not meant to be an entry point on this machine. As you'll see, there are no steps over here on the right hand side. Now, moving around to the rear of the machine, to go along with those premium features that we talked about, the auxiliary hydraulics and the hitch assist, you are going to have a category 1 3-point here. But the nice thing about this 3-point on this machine is you are going to have tons of adjustability. So for one, you're going to have the adjustment here where if you needed to tilt your 3-point arms to give a bit of a tilt, you have that with this handle here. You're also going to be able to put these 3-point arms into float with these pins here. You can simply pull these out, twist them in the upright position to give this float. You're going to have the nice adjustable sway bars here on each side rather than the chains. So these are a lot more easily adjusted than the chains. They're going to serve that same purpose, but you do have those. Now, you're also going to have your 540 PTO shaft right down here that is going to have the sleeve over it whenever you buy it. You're also going to have a 3-position adjustable drawbar here. That way, depending on what rear implements you're choosing, you do have those different positions to be able to get that extra length or to shorten that up to get it out of the way. Also, your top link here is going to be adjustable. So if you need to change that position, you have that. And then also your hydraulic fill is going to be right above that top link. And then your dipstick is going to be to the left for your hydraulic fluid. And if we look back right behind our left rear tire, we're going to see 2 filters. So your hydraulic filters are located right back there. Easy enough to get to. You can see them from the rear, but that way you know exactly where those are to do that rear maintenance. Now, along with all of those great features, you're also going to have 2 of your fluid fill points here at the rear. Over on the right is where we're going to fill up our windshield washer fluid right here. And then to the left is where our diesel fill is going to be. So this is going to have a large diesel cap opening here with that tethered lid. This is going to have a 13.8 gallon tank on it, so you can have plenty of fuel on this machine whenever you are using it. Now, you're also going to have back here at the rear, you are going to have the rear lights, and then as well up top on top of the cab, you are going to have your turn signals. So that way, whenever you're using this machine, you can be safe. You will have the rear lights. You'll also have your turning signals. That way, if you have to have your hazards on or either one of those turning signals, you do have all of that at the rear, as well as your slow moving vehicle sign right here. Now, another thing to mention about this machine is that you do have tire options whenever you're looking into these. Commonly here in our area, what we see is we order these machines with the R4 industrial tires, and that's because they are a good balance between the turf and the agricultural tire. They still have the large lugs here all the way from the front to the back, but they are not going to be as aggressive as an R1, which is more the Ag V style tire that you see. But you do have this option, that option, and also the turf option if you happen to be needing to use this in an area that you're really worried about ground disruption, and maybe even golf courses. They do make a certain turf tire that are specific for those golf courses to give a little more width and a little more depth to that tire to really spread out that load. Now, before we hop in the cab and show all of the operator station features and functions and show how this machine drives, let's talk a little bit about uses of this machine. Now, obviously, most of the time, these machines are going to come from the factory with the loader installed, but keep in mind, you do not have to purchase the loader with this machine. But if you are planning at any time to do any loader work, make sure that you do get this loader ordered from the factory. It will save you money coming in that way. Now, also, whenever we're talking about specs of this loader, you're going to get a maximum lifting height of 110 inches, so just right above the 9-foot mark. You're also going to get a lifting capacity 20 inches out from the pivot. So that means from where this bucket mounts to the loader out to the edge of that bucket, that is going to be approximately that 20-inch mark. You're going to get about 1,800 pounds of lifting capacity. So you can do quite a bit of lifting with this machine. But one thing that you need to keep in mind is, if that is your intent with this machine, doing a lot of loader work, we need to think about ballast in this machine. And ballast is going to be adding that extra weight in the areas to counterweight what we're going to be doing. So if we're going to be doing a lot of front end loader work, what we need to think about is rear ballast. We need to think about whether we're going to add wheel weights to this machine, whether we're going to add a fluid to the tires to add that weight, or if we're going to add a rear implement or a ballast box to the rear to give us that counterweight that we can do that front end loader work that we need to do. Now, also, this machine is going to be a 4-wheel drive machine. So you do have access to 4-wheel drive, and that is something that you definitely want to use whenever you are doing this loader work. Now, as you saw, you are going to have the 3-point in the back. So any of those implements that are going to need that 3-point, maybe we're talking about a box blade, maybe we're talking about a rotary cutter. What you're going to have in the rear is 2,500 pounds of lifting capacity with your 3-point. Now, if we do not have the loader on, and if we're going to be lifting something pretty heavy there in the rear, using it a lot of up and down, one thing we may need to consider is front weights for this tractor. So once again, all about being safe, making sure that we're ballasted out depending on what we're doing with this machine. Now, along with that 2,500 pounds of lift, as you saw, you have a 540 PTO shaft there at the rear. So whenever we're looking at rear implements that are going to be using that rear PTO shaft, we need to think that we have to look for those implements that have a 540 PTO shaft, because we can get into ones that have 1,000, and those are not going to be compatible with your machine. Now, operating weight on this machine, well, since we're already talking about ballast and we're talking about rear weights and front weights, with the cab we're looking at about 4,600 pounds. Without the cab, you lose about 800 pounds of that, but this machine here, you're looking at around 4,600. So you have to think, though, that that weight still isn't distributed evenly from the front to the back. So we need to make sure that we're being safe whenever doing those different things on this machine. All right, so now let's go ahead and hop in the cab, get in the spot where you are going to be doing all of your work on this machine. So let's go ahead and hop in here. I've got my second camera to make it a little bit easier to show you around, but you are going to have this left-hand door first with your 2 steps. So whenever we first look into this machine, some of the things that we're going to see, let's look at the seat first. This is going to be a manually weight adjusted seat. So if we need to adjust the tension on this seat, if you are a larger operator, heavier operator, however you want to put it, if you need more tension on that seat, we're going to turn it this way. If we need to lessen that tension, we're going to go counterclockwise. So clockwise to raise it, counterclockwise to lower that tension. I'm a bigger guy, so I'm going to go ahead and raise this on up, and I'll go ahead and hop up into the tractor. Now, this is just going to be paper that's from the factory to cover that beautiful rubber floor mat there. This is really nice. Good soft floor mat to add to that comfortability throughout the day. Now, once we're inside, one thing that I would say is I have plenty of room inside this cab. So I'm a bigger guy, about 280, 5'10". You know, I've got plenty of room in here to move around. I'm a little bit boxy, and I don't feel like I'm claustrophobic. This is going to be the premium comfort guard cab for these compact utility tractors, and it's a nice cab overall. So we'll start over here on the left-hand side. Over here is where we're going to have just some storage. Over here on your left-hand side, might have a little bit of stuff left over from the factory. This here is a brand new machine, so we do have some leftovers. we're going to have this cup holder over here on the left hand side. And then if we move down here by our feet, this machine has the e-hydro transmission. So what we're going to have is a gear shifter here with A, low gear, neutral, B is our working gear, and C as our road gear. So that is what this shifter on the left hand side is going to be for. And then we're also going to have our parking brake here. This is going to be your standard style parking brake. We're going to pull up, push the button to release that parking brake. Whenever we're ready to set that parking brake, we're going to pull up just like that. Now down there right below the parking brake is going to be our differential lock. So this I can reach up, hit with my heel, push that down, and what that's going to do is that's going to lock in my rear wheels back here. That way I'm getting maximum traction when I'm getting into those sticky situations where I need that extra traction. I've got that right there with my rear differential lock. Now moving up in front here is where our brake pedals are going to be. We do have turning brakes on this machine, which means we have two separate pedals here. There is a latch, as you can see, that's locking those two pedals together, but if we need to, we can always take that latch off and be able to use those brakes independently. So if we need to turn tighter to the left, we can push down on that left hand brake. If we need to turn tighter to the right, we can push down on that right hand brake. This is more for the more experienced operators, but if you're a new operator and you're going to be working in tight turn situations, I'd highly encourage get out in the open, play with this, get comfortable with it before you try using it in those tight situations, just so you don't have any issues. Now moving up here onto the steering column, what we're going to have is an adjustable steering wheel. So we have this knob here that we can pull up to lower that steering wheel, or we can raise this up. Over here to the left of the steering wheel, this is where we're going to have our wiper knob right here. We're also going to have our four-wheel drive engagement switch here. So down is going to be four-wheel drive off. If we push this up, that's going to engage that four-wheel drive. So very easy right there. Then we're going to have our display panel right here in the middle. So I'll go ahead and turn the tractor on so you can see all the lights that light up there. Here is where we're going to have our display of our engine hours. We're also going to have our fuel level indicator and our RPM gauge. Also our temperature gauge here. Then to the left over here, this is going to be our hitch assist engage button. So if you go and watch that other video and want to learn more about the hitch assist, that is the button that I am hitting in the cab to be able to turn that hitch assist on. So make sure to check that out. Now back over here to the right, this is going to be where our light switch is. This is also going to have the button here that's going to allow us to scroll through our different options here on the display panel. So as you can see, as I'm pushing that button, I'm showing different things rather than just my engine hours, and then I'll end up back at engine hours when I'm done. Now we talked about that DPF filter, and that is going to be the cleaning system on this machine. So we're going to see these two buttons here. This is for a parked regen, and what that is, a regen is whenever that filter that we talked about, that DPF, when that filter gets full of soot, it has to clean itself out so the traction can function normally. Now in general, this tractor is going to do this on its own. As you're working, you're going to keep running. If you happen to see a light that pops up that looks like this little puff of smoke, that means that your tractor is going through that regen process. We just need to keep working as normal, let it do its thing. Now if it does pop up with this button here with the P next to it, then you need to go ahead and stop the tractor, hit this button, and then now what it's going to do is the tractor is going to take over, but it is working too hard, it's too hot, so it needs to be parked with that button pushed so it can do its thing, and then you can continue working. This doesn't happen a lot. Don't let this be a feature that scares you off. Most all of these compact utility tractors are going to have this feature, so that is something that's very common. Now what you are going to see here is that puff of smoke with a line through it. That is turning off the cleaning system, and you do not want to do this. Sometimes people will do this because they don't want their tractor to be getting heated up and cleaning in certain situations, maybe inside a barn, but those are very, very rare situations. So I just always tell people to make sure and stay away from that button. But other than that, the only other things we're going to have here is going to be our hazard light button and then our two turning signal switches here. Now right below the light switch, we're going to have our throttle lever. So very easy, you know, rabbit to turtle, that's going to change our engine speed. Then we're going to have our key switch right down below that. And then on the floor over here is going to be our twin touch pedals. So we talked about this being the e-hydro transmission. So with that e-hydro, all you have to do to drive this machine is use these two pedals right here, forward and reverse, along with our throttle, changing that speed, but then using our foot pedals down here at the right. Now, once we move over to our right hand side, nothing down here below the seat that we need to mess with, but what we are going to have over here on the right is our loader joystick. We're also going to have our 3-point raise and lower. So right here is where we could lower down the 3-point. 1 is going to be our lowest position. 6 is going to be our highest position. So if we needed to raise up those 3-point arms, we would pull it back. If we wanted to lower it, we would push it forward. Now, if we wanted to find a position to lock that into, say we were doing some box blade work and we really like the depth right here at number 3, we could loosen up our lock, move this to number 3, tighten this lock down, and then once we go forward, that's not going to allow our 3-point to lower any further than the 3 position. So this is a really nice feature if you're going to be using that 3-point for a lot of different work. Now, as we move on back, the yellow switch here is going to be our PTO engagement button. So right here, this turns the PTO on, and then holding it down is what's going to actually actuate the shaft to start spinning back there at the rear. Now, next to it, this is going to be our e-hydro control panel. So this has a lot of nice features in it for you to use. The dial right here is going to be for motion match. So we'll see 2 emblems here, one with a tractor with a longer arrow, one with a tractor with a shorter arrow. So whenever we have this dead center, that means that our tractor is going to be right in between these 2 features, meaning that it's going to have just a middle amount of rollout. So what I mean by rollout is whenever we let off of these e-hydro transmissions, your tractor will continue to roll before it comes to a stop, but it will not just continue rolling. It is eventually going to stop with that e-hydro transmission. But with this motion match feature right here, we can change how much rollout we have. So if we want that tractor to roll a little further, we can turn the dial all the way over here to the left. We have a couple of positions in between. And then if we want that tractor to stop a lot sooner, then we can turn this all the way over here to the right for it to stop. Now, a couple other things that we're going to have is here we're going to have our max speed setting. So this can also be thought of as a creeper setting. So if you're in those situations where maybe you're working in a barn, you only want to be able to go 1 mile an hour the whole time you're going, you don't want to have to think about how hard you're pressing the pedal, you can actually engage this button here and then use your set buttons to change your max speed, and you'll actually see that come up here on your screen whenever you go to set those settings. Now over here, what this is going to be is our e-throttle. So what this does is as we push on our pedals, it's going to raise the RPMs. Now you can turn that off if you're needing to do such things as mowing. You're wanting to mow at a certain speed, but you need those higher RPMs. Then you can turn that off and then turn your RPMs up with your throttle here, and then the engine's going to stay at the same speed, but your transmission is going to vary on how hard you are pushing the pedals. Now our other feature here, this is going to be our load match setting. Now this has to do whenever we're working with the loader. So the load match setting is going to be one that keeps the tractor from stalling out. So if we're going into those larger loads, those larger piles, we're pushing into those, if we have our load match set, then it's going to either raise or lower the RPMs of the engine and also work with the hydraulic flow to make sure that your tractor does not stall out. So whenever we're doing lots of loader work, we want to make sure and have this load match button pushed to make sure that we don't stall out that tractor. And then lastly, we are going to have cruise control on this tractor. We have a set button and a reset button just like you would on your cars, and this functions just as you would think on your vehicle. Now you'll also notice that over here on the side we have a bunch of different openings here, a bunch of pop outs. So with this tractor being an R series, you can add tons of attachments. So you'll see that they have added a total of 11 different openings here for those additional switches for attachments. Then you're going to have an indicator light over here to the right that is going to let you know if your transmission's getting too hot and to make sure and reference your operator manual. Now the only thing that I haven't hit on is going to be these 3 openings here, and those are going to be for your rear hydraulic outlets. Now as you saw at the rear of this machine, there are none on the machine as of right now, but what you can add to this machine is you can add up to 2 rear hydraulic remotes. So if you need those implements that need rear hydraulics, you can add those on this machine. You can also add a diverter kit on this machine to be able to change where that flow goes, and you can also add third function hydraulics to your loader joystick Right here, we can add in that third function hydraulic to be able to use such things out front as a grapple to be able to grab onto stuff or anything out there on the front end loader that may need that third function. Now, as we look up here in the top of the cab, we are going to have heat and air. Right up here at the top, we're going to have a total of 6 vents all the way around the machine. We're also going to have a Bluetooth radio on board right here. This is also going to have auxiliary ports, including a USB and a regular auxiliary that come with the tractor. Then we're also going to have a sunshade here in the front, and then also a rear view mirror. All right, so now I'll go ahead and turn on the tractor so you can hear how it sounds. Go ahead and raise up on our loader just a little bit here. Take our park brake off, and I'm just going to put this back 1 notch into that B gear. Once I do that, all I need to do to drive is right over here on the right hand side. I can push on my forward pedal to go forward, and I can push on my reverse pedal to go in reverse. Now on these R's, what you're going to notice is that from the factory, you are going to have the rear backup beeper on these machines. Once again, the R series family is all about adding that safety to these machines, so that is one of the features that was added as of 2023, just to make sure that everyone around you is aware of what you're doing. Now, last but not least, let's talk about warranty, price, and financing. So the warranty on this machine is going to be a 2-year, 2,000-hour bumper-to-bumper warranty, along with a 6-year, 2,000-hour powertrain warranty that's going to cover your engine and transmission. Now, if you want to up the warranty of the overall machine, the comprehensive warranty up to that 6 years, you do have that option. Just make sure to ask your salesperson about the power guard options and what that costs to add that to your machine, because you can add that bumper to bumper all the way up to the extended range of your powertrain. Now, the powertrain, you cannot go any further than that 6-year, 2,000 hour, but that is a ton of hours for this machine, and that is a really, really good warranty that's going to make sure that your machine is repaired with OEM John Deere parts. Now, price-wise, as this machine sits with a lot of options, we're looking at the 4044R with a cab, with a loader, with all of the extra features that you saw. This machine is going to be around that $60,000 mark. Now, I know that that may sound like a crazy amount for a 42.5 horsepower tractor, but you have to think that there are options out there. So that's what brings me to the financing on this machine. With John Deere, you're going to have multiple different finance options throughout the year. There are always different incentives from time to time of what options are available. So we want to make sure and check those out. And whenever you are looking at financing these machines, you are going to have needs for insurance. And so whenever you are pricing this machine versus the competitor, one of the things you need to look at is the difference in the cost of that insurance from the John Deere to the Kubotas to the Mahindras, because that may make a huge difference whenever you're looking at these machines. These 40 horsepower tractors are in a very competitive part of the market, so I just highly encourage that you do all of your research. Make sure that whenever you're pricing these machines, you're talking to your dealership, because the price that I gave you is the list price, and we need to make sure and see what type of incentives or discounts are out there so that you make sure and get the right price. So guys, I hope this video helped you out. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, we just ask you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also guys, if you need any John Deere parts at all, make sure to check us out at 247parts.com. And as always guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, make sure to check out this cool video and this one. Buy your parts right up here and subscribe right here.